And jolly glad I am to be here at last. I bring messages from the people of England to the people of Australia, and I should be very...
Amy Johnson, the daring aviator who once soared solo from England to Australia, is a name forever etched in the golden age of flight. Her fearless exploits made headlines throughout the 1930s, and her tragic death in 1941, when her plane mysteriously vanished into the icy waters of the Thames estuary, has haunted aviation history ever since. Now, after more than 80 years, a stunning new discovery has reignited public interest in her final flight. A small but unmistakable fragment from the parachute exit door of her last aircraft has been found and preserved by the Kent Battle of Britain Museum. The final flight and a fateful turn.
In 1930, Amy Johnson was the first woman to fly alone to Australia. 3 years later, she flew the Atlantic to America with Jim Mollison, whom she had married the year before. Ever since her first wonderful flight, she had been Britain's most famous airwoman, the unknown, unassuming girl from Hull who wrote pages in flying history. Now she has crashed in the Thames estuary, in a plane which she was delivering to an aerodrome as part of her war job. She died flying in the service of her country.
On January 5, 1941, Amy Johnson took off from Prestwick on a routine ferry mission for the Air Transport Auxiliary. She was piloting an Airspeed Oxford twin-engine trainer bound for RAF Kidlington near Oxford. Though the flight should have been straightforward, conditions that day were anything but ideal. Snow blanketed the ground, winds were treacherous, and visibility dropped dangerously low. Somewhere along her journey, Amy veered far off course. Instead of flying southwest towards Oxford, her aircraft drifted southeast and ultimately disappeared over the Thames estuary near Herne Bay. Reports from the time suggest Johnson encountered mechanical or navigational difficulties. Fuel exhaustion became a likely factor as her aircraft was last seen descending into the estuary. Witnesses aboard nearby vessels later confirmed spotting a parachute and a figure in the water, still alive and calling for help. The rescue attempt, however, ended in heartbreak. Lieutenant Commander Walter Fletcher of HMS Haslemere bravely jumped into the freezing waters to save her. He died days later from exposure, and Amy's body was never recovered. All that remained were scattered personal effects and unanswered questions. Initially, Johnson's crash was chalked up to the perils of wartime flying, especially given the severe weather conditions and navigational hazards of the era. But even at the time, not everyone accepted that explanation. Some who saw the wreck believed the plane's trajectory and impact suggested a more violent end. Fuel exhaustion may explain a crash, but what caused her to end up so far off her route remains one of the central puzzles of her death. This mystery deepened when, decades later, veterans and witnesses began speaking out about an alternate possibility, that Amy's plane had not simply fallen from the sky, but had been shot down by her own countrymen in a tragic case of mistaken identity. A theory of friendly fire emerges. The story took a dramatic turn in 1999 when Tom Mitchell, a wartime anti-aircraft gunner from Kent, came forward with a startling confession. According to Mitchell, his battery had engaged with what they believed to be an enemy aircraft that failed to issue the correct identification signal. The plane, he said, was fired upon with 16 rounds and subsequently plunged into the Thames estuary. Only after reading the newspaper the following day did he realize the truth. It had been Amy Johnson's aircraft. Mitchell claimed he and his fellow soldiers were explicitly told never to speak of what happened. The implications of his account were enormous. Friendly fire incidents were not uncommon during World War II, but the thought that one of Britain's national heroes could have died at the hands of her own military and then been silently erased from the official narrative was deeply unsettling. Though the Air Ministry had blamed the crash on bad weather and navigational error, Mitchell's story suggested a cover-up of enormous proportions. He maintained that no one in his unit realized the mistake until it was far too late. Adding weight to his claim were additional eyewitness reports from naval personnel aboard nearby vessels who described hearing gunfire in the area around the same time Johnson's aircraft was last seen. And while official records remained vague, they did not definitively rule out the possibility of friendly fire. This ambiguity gave Mitchell's story credibility among historians already troubled by the lack of evidence from the crash site. Despite renewed interest, no formal investigation was ever launched to re-examine the possibility of friendly fire. Nevertheless, the theory remains one of the most debated explanations for Amy Johnson's untimely end. The fragment that reignited the mystery. In early 2024, the mystery was pulled back into the spotlight when a fragment believed to be from Amy Johnson's doomed aircraft surfaced at auction. Described as a portion of the plane's parachute exit door, likely the very one she used to bail out before perishing, it's believed to be the only known surviving piece of the wreckage. The fragment was authenticated and successfully acquired by the Kent Battle of Britain Museum for just over £3,600. This relic carries with it immense historical weight. For decades, it was believed that nothing of Amy's aircraft had survived the crash. But here, at last, was tangible evidence. A small, weathered piece of metal that connected directly to that fateful day in 1941. Dave Brocklehurst, chairman of the museum, expressed both excitement and reverence upon acquiring the artifact, noting its addition to the museum's Air Transport Auxiliary display as a major contribution to British aviation history. The fragment's sudden appearance raised questions of its own. Where had it been all this time? How had it survived decades without public notice? According to Matt Crowson of Hanson's Auctioneers, the item had come to his attention through a casual inquiry, an email asking if he might be interested in a piece of aviation history. He was amazed, he said, to discover what it actually was. Once word of the item got out, interest skyrocketed, with multiple bidders vying for the opportunity to own it. For aviation enthusiasts and historians alike, the fragment represents more than just a piece of metal, it's a clue. It proves that some part of Johnson's aircraft did survive and may still be out there, submerged or buried. While it doesn't solve the mystery, it provides a new focal point for inquiry, suggesting the search for further wreckage or documentation may not yet be over. Amy Johnson's enduring legacy.
Well, I think it was rather pleasant flying alone. You see, there's certainly nobody to quarrel with or to contradict you. Nobody to say yes if you say no. Oh, I think it's good fun flying alone.
What did you think about all the time?
Well, think about, just the little odds and ends as to whether perhaps I'd get a hot cup of tea at the other end, or if there was going to be any dinner waiting for me. In fact, I wondered more than once whether I was going to reach the other end at all.
Long before her tragic death, Amy Johnson was already a household name. Her 1930 solo flight from England to Australia launched her into global fame. Piloting a gypsy moth she named Jason, she covered over 11,000 miles in just under 3 weeks, a journey that earned her a CBE and the Harmon Trophy. But more than her records, it was her courage, intelligence, and unapologetic ambition that won over a generation. Johnson's rise was remarkable not only for its timing, but for its scope. At a time when women were still widely discouraged from pursuing careers in engineering or aviation, she shattered every glass ceiling in her path. She became the first woman in Britain to earn a ground engineer's license, mastered the mechanics of her aircraft, and spoke publicly about women's rightful place in technical professions. Quote, "I soon learned it saved time to fetch the tool right away," she once joked in a speech, subtly challenging the idea that only men belonged in hangars or cockpits. Her influence went beyond aviation. Amy modeled for designers like Elsa Schiaparelli, inspired film characters, and became a symbol of British modernity between the wars. She and her husband, Jim Mollison, captured the public's imagination with their record-breaking flights, dramatic near misses, and glamorous public appearances. Their marriage may have ended in divorce, but their era-defining achievements left a lasting impression. Today, her name graces roads, schools, buildings, aircraft, and even commemorative statues. From a statue in Herne Bay near the site of her final flight to a Google Doodle marking her 114th birthday, Amy's life and legacy are remembered in countless ways. And now, with the discovery of a fragment from her final flight, the fascination surrounding her has only deepened. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think really happened to Amy Johnson that day in 1941? Let us know in the comments section below.